Hens is the European economist at Germany's oldest private bank, Berenberg, and Nina Schick, friend of this programme many years, is consultant at Hanbury Strategy. So, Florian, how meaningful are the differences between the FPD and the Greens, who are potentially Mrs Merkel's coalition partners?
Probably not very much. Obviously, those differences were the widest among the participating parties at the table in Berlin. But at the end of the day, the FDP probably pulled out because they feared to be squeezed too much by those other parties. And remember, they haven't been in the parliament for the last 4 years. So that step from basically being out straight into the government was probably a bit too far for them.
So, Nina, the options are essentially another attempt to lash together a coalition with the Greens and the FPD, an attempt to go for a grand coalition with the Social Democrats, or new elections. I mean, Martin Schulz, who leads the SDP, has said he won't go into another coalition with Angela Merkel. So where does this leave us?
Well, the centre-left SPD have obviously ruled out another grand coalition because they want to be a voice of opposition. So I actually think that long-term, for having a healthy democracy in Germany, it makes strategic sense. So the options now are either return to the coalition talks, which I don't think it's likely. I don't think the FDP will be returning to the negotiating table.
Goodness.
So there's either going to be a minority government, which is a possibility, even though Chancellor Merkel, in her typical way, has said this would not be her preference, but she hasn't ruled it out, or new elections. And the truth is we don't know thus far, because the vote will have to go to the Bundestag first. There'll be 3 votes, and it'll either be a minority government, in my view, or new elections.
Is it possible that you could get a grand coalition if Angela Merkel walks away? Could the SPD be lured back to the table by that?
There was talk that the SPD would agree to another große Koalition if Merkel were to drop out, but I don't think that's certainly not on the table for now, and I don't think that's actually a viable option when it comes to coalition building.
Florian, have the FPD taken a risk in walking away from talks, given that they garnered a lot of votes last time from Mrs Merkel's former supporters who assumed she was going to win anyway, and now they're being blamed for the breakdown of these talks?
They are being blamed, but at least the polls that we've received so far indicate that they are not really suffering from that. So the voter doesn't seem to see the FDP actually as the culprit, the one to blame. Because if it wasn't for the Liberals, then it would have been probably the Greens or Merkel's party that would have walked away from these debates. So I don't see that we will have a different result if we would have repeat elections, at least as it looks for now.
Right. So do you feel that this is the end of the Merkel era, the beginning of the end of the Merkel era?
Probably not. I mean, obviously, there's a serious risk if there would be repeat elections and the Social Democrats would be lured into a grand coalition on the requirement that Merkel would have to step down. Obviously, that is a risk, but I think that's too early to call. Merkel is strong in her party. There's no natural successor so far. She's got the support from the population, so not quite yet.
I guess the question most people in the UK will be asking, what on earth does this all mean for Brexit?
Well, actually, I would argue that it's bad news for Brexit, so I don't buy into this argument at all that Merkel is weakened and therefore Britain can go back and get a better deal from the EU. That's definitely not what's going to happen. The EU already has an agreed position, but obviously because domestically now this is an unprecedented situation in German politics, all attention is going to be at home. So any kind of priority, order of priority Brexit on the list of the many things, Brexit slips down that list. So, in fact, because the time is, as Michel Barnier loves to remind us, at every opportunity the clock is ticking down, and the political turmoil in Germany just means Brexit slips down.
And of course, Florian, it also puts a question mark over further reforms of the Eurozone.
It does, but I wouldn't say it's going to slow down the process very much. Obviously, it's not going to accelerate the process. But after all, you have to see, yes, the ability now for any German government to decide on those reforms is limited, but so is the willingness to do that. So that's not going to change the game.
All right, Florian Hens, Nina Schick, thanks both.